lot of people who don't know about eating disorders would just think it's such a vain mental health. You just want to be thin. It's not that. You're not eating, your brain's not functioning. I'll look in the mirror, but you'll see something that isn't real. This might not be for everyone. You need to let whoever is being affected by anorexia do what they still love to do. You don't have to be a runner or be super lean. You don't have to look a certain way to be considered healthy and fit.
Welcome, fitness fanatics, to the Physi.Kal podcast, where we dive deep into fitness, health, and the business behind it all. I'm Coach Cal, and I am here to help you break the mold. Welcome back, Physi.Kal community. I am very excited because today we have a super special episode. Now, I need to highlight that this episode could be a trigger for anybody who has had a prior eating disorder. So if you think that this could trigger you in some way, potentially skip over this episode. But for the rest of you, I'm very excited to dive into this because I think that this is going to be something that either people have gone through, can relate to, or could even help someone at the moment. So I am joined by one of my closest friends, Bella. Hey, Bells.
Hello.
Bells is a bit nervous to be here today. That's okay. We're going to work through it. As we've said, just a recorded conversation between you and me. Yeah.
That's good.
So a little bit about Bella before we get started. So Bella and I know each other from track and field days. Don't worry about that. It won't be on the recording.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I was like, is that going to?
Nah.
Cool.
So we know us each other from track and field days. We were both high achievers in that, I would say. We've both been in many nationals and state teams as well. And Bells, what else about you? You're also a nurse currently.
Yeah.
And I guess what we're going to be, diving into today is your experience with your eating disorder that kind of started for you in high school. I know this journey and story is different for a lot of people as well. And obviously you can only speak from your own experience in this. But talk us through when you kind of started developing this eating disorder. And I know you don't exactly know what exactly triggered it, but what were some of the contributing factors, do you think, for how everything started for you?
I think it would have begun probably at the end of grade 10. I had just, I like to say, I peaked in grade 10, in terms of fitness and what I was achieving in athletics at the time and even other curricular activities. And I feel like I had had a really good year in sporting, and in my head, I'm not even social media at the time because Instagram and things weren't a huge thing at the time, but you see in magazines and everything about women losing weight and feeling better and doing all that stuff. And even though I was 15, I think at the time I would have been, I kind of felt like I needed to lose some weight to even get better at my athletics. So I remember thinking I'll just lose 2 kilos and I'll be sweet. I'll just continue my athletics and whatever. And also I need to factor in the fact that when we did athletics and still to this day, you don't have to wear bummers. It's the little bikinis kind of, I would say, and the sports bras. But that's what people wore. So that's what I wore because that's what all the girls were wearing. So you obviously don't want to look, you want to look good in it. So I was thinking, let's just lose 2 kilos. I'll look great in that. I'll be better at athletics. And I remember I lost 2 kilos pretty easily because the amount of exercise I was doing, all I had to do was cut out a meal or I don't know, just eat better in general. Because I never had a bad diet, but I would have had treats and things because I could at the time. And I didn't give a shit. I didn't give a shit what I ate because I was exercising and I felt good and stuff. And so I remember cutting out a meal, lost 2 kilos, don't know what the time frame was, but pretty quickly. And then it just, when you're good at something, you want to keep doing it. I was good at losing weight, so I kept doing it. And it spiraled. And I knew I had an issue within, again, time frames I don't really remember. I don't remember a lot from when I was ill. Maybe 3-4 months, it would have spiraled out of control into maybe 6 months. By the time it had become maybe 5-6 months, it was 10-12 kilos that had just gone.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's where it first started, is not blaming athletics because obviously there's a multitude of factors, but what we wore, it's addicting to lose weight. I was good at it. It was easy. That's how it started. And then it just spiraled.
Yeah, interesting. Were you getting positive reinforcements from...
Absolutely. At the start I was.
Yeah.
And then it would have got to the point where everyone was like, there's obviously an issue.
Yeah.
Like at the start, 100%, I would have been getting compliments and I thought I was looking really good too. And then I thought, and that's another thing, is the more I did it, the bigger and bigger I thought I was getting, if that makes sense. Like
physically?
It's a body dysmorphia thing. So like still to this day, I'll look in the mirror and like I know I'm not big. Like I'm aware of that. But you'll see something that isn't real. So like even when I was so malnourished, I knew I was malnourished, but I didn't see that in the mirror. I saw something completely different.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so what you were seeing in the mirror was obviously a larger version of you.
Larger version, yeah.
Were you like pinching yourself or finding areas?
Yeah. It's not even though that I saw myself in the mirror as being like large. It's just that I wanted to be tiny. So like I could see that I was small, but I was like, not good enough. Let's be smaller.
Yeah, interesting. And you mentioned as well about the people around you starting to notice. And I also had a friend that was going through anorexia in high school. And this was something that was so difficult as an external party. I had no idea how to tackle that, what to say.
Yeah.
Did anyone try to talk to you? Probably your parents.
Again, I don't know if it's because I've like pushed it out of my memory. I don't remember a lot from grade 11 and 12. I wasn't there for most of grade 11 anyway. But I remember, I think my best friend would have noticed. But again, if you don't know what to say, like how do you approach that? You can't just, well, you could, but people don't go up to people and say, you have an issue, you need help. Like, although maybe someone should have, I don't know. And that's the other thing is like I was in denial. I knew I had an issue. Like I was happy. I was thriving because I was tiny. And that's all that mattered in my life at the time. And like we were discussing earlier, I think, like athletics, my coach at the time, he knew. Like it got to the point, I'm pretty sure from what my mum told me is he's told my mum that I need help. And like I think she tried, but obviously I was in denial, so it would have had to be her forcing me to get help. And I was in a competition once at Nationals for the heptathlon. I think we were in Adelaide and got to the last event, the 800. Obviously my least favourite event, but anyway. And Eric, my coach at the time, was like, she can't do this. She'll not, like, she won't finish.
Right.
Like, you have to pull her out.
Okay.
And I think that's when Ruth, my mum, was like, something needs to happen.
Okay. And so that was the point where she decided to try to get you help, was it?
It ended up forcing me to get help.
Right.
Yeah.
And what did that help look like?
It was an ambulance to the hospital for the first point. And then I was admitted to the cardiac ward for a couple of days because my heart was failing.
Okay. Hold on. Let's just go back a second here. Okay. So that's obviously very extreme.
Yeah.
What was happening there. So it got to that point before there was a trigger for any type of help?
My parents knew.
Yeah.
But are you talking like external factors like people from school and like friends and things?
I guess just any kind of intervention. So your parents obviously would have known and would have been trying to get you to eat more potentially, or were you seeing anybody or?
No, wasn't seeing anybody. So I remember I went to the doctors and because mum wanted me to get blood tests to get obviously everything checked. And I got the blood tests and obviously they check for like potassium, phosphate, all your like electrolyte levels. They check your blood sugar and everything. And obviously it came back fucked. Like it came back like bad. And that's the day that I went to the hospital because like mum got the phone call and the doctor at the time was like, you need to get at a hospital.
Right.
And that was I don't remember any sort of intervention before. I know my parents knew I needed help, but again, how do you force someone to get help? Like, you can't force them to eat because I wouldn't do it. So the only way for me to get help is because I don't think they wanted to force me. And also then my parents were like, I'm not going to listen to them. So the only way at the time was for the hospital to force me, because then you go under the Mental Health Act.
Right. Okay. And so what talk me through what was happening prior to you getting in that ambulance? What was happening to you physiologically?
I think I remember everything like falling apart, because like my plan, my like my, what's the word when you have my control over everything? It's a control factor as well. For me, anorexia was anyway. Like, I had a sense of control over something. And so like that had all been taken away from me. As soon as I got in the ambulance, I had no control over anything anymore. Anything I ate, did, was controlled by the nurses, the doctors, my parents at some form. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you mentioned your heart rate as well. How low did that get?
23 from memory.
23. What does that do to a person or can do?
I mean, that's why I was in heart failure, is from so to get admitted to the hospital with an eating disorder, my understanding, I haven't really looked into it, but from what I have gathered, is you need to hit sounds bad. You need to basically tick their boxes in certain aspects. So you need to, it's to do with blood pressure, systolically, like sitting, standing blood pressure needs to hit something. Your basal metabolic temperature, your heart rate. I think there's something to do with your BMI, or maybe how many kilos you've lost in X amount of time. I don't know the numbers to do with that. So you basically need to tick boxes to even get admitted to hospital,
Right.
which is very unfortunate for some people who actually do need help and they don't hit those numbers. Tick those boxes. Don't say hit those numbers. That sounds so bad.
Yeah.
So, and then because of the heart failure, I think normally a lot of people who get admitted would go to at the time I was obviously an adolescent, so I would have gone to the mental health adolescent ward. But my understanding is because of my situation, I had to be admitted to the cardiac ward. So it's called CCU, and they monitor you. And I also remember, and this was so infuriating for me, I kind of find it funny at the time, but I had to have a special. And because I'm a nurse now, I understand what this is. But at the time, I just thought it was it's just an annoying person who just had to keep watching me. And because I think it's a mental health, you're under a Mental Health Act, I think they also think it's a self-harm situation as well.
Right.
Again, don't know.
Was it a self-harm
Oh,
situation?
well, anorexia in itself is kind of a self-harm
Sure.
issue, because you are self-harming yourself.
But was it something that consciously was...
I was doing to self-harm me.
Yeah.
Not
right.
at all.
So did you know that, because if we're talking such a low heart rate,
I didn't care.
How close were you to death?
I don't think they can really put numbers on it. I don't think I had months left.
Yeah.
From what I can gather.
Yeah.
With a heart rate of 23, like, I do have a naturally low heart rate. Like, even now, I will sit in the 30s while sleeping. But, like, I feel like with a heart rate of 23, like, you're 23 pulses of death. Like, if that's my normal heart rate at that time, what would it have been like when I was sleeping?
Yeah, right.
Like, I can't even imagine what that was.
Wow.
I don't really want to.
Yeah, no, of course. And so it wasn't necessarily a conscious thing, but you knew that something was very wrong.
I knew I had an eating disorder.
Yeah.
100% I knew I had an eating disorder. I was fixated on food. I was fixated on Googling eating disorders and everything. Like, everything to do with eating disorders, like, I knew about pretty much. But I didn't care about my health because I was thin. Like, my health didn't matter.
Yeah, right. Did you know that it could have possibly led to your death at an extreme
I think
point?
at the time I didn't care. Now looking back, that's huge for me to even say because I'm like, that's so ridiculous. But at the time, I mean, you're not eating. Your brain's not functioning. The only thing that I cared about was being thin.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
So crazy, isn't it? Like, as you say, thinking back on it.
And it sounds so vain to say. And like, I feel like a lot of people who don't know about eating disorders would just think it's such a vain mental health. Like, you just want to be thin. You just want to like look good. And it's not that. It is that on the outside, like, sure. But like, there's so much more like mental issues that are behind that. It's like when people say just eat, it's not that easy. Like, you'll eat and then you'll feel guilty for a week. And then you spiral and then you go backwards. And then it's just, I just don't feel like people know enough about it either.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously.
And something that comes up often as well is the description of selfish too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that can't help.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, you just take it with a grain of salt, I guess. Like, people can think what they want to think and that's fine. But the best thing is like get more education out there surrounding it, I feel like.
Yeah. So you were then in the hospital. You had a special who was watching over you.
Wasn't allowed to leave me.
At that point, they were feeding you back up, or what's the recovery?
So that's another reason, like when people say just eat a burger, you can't actually do that because it could kill you. It can kill some people. So I don't know how they determine if you're going to get refeeding syndrome or not. I think it depends on how quickly you've lost weight, how much weight you've lost. But refeeding syndrome is pretty much if I, at that point, was to eat a burger, my electrolyte levels, this is my understanding, this could be, I don't think it's completely wrong, but your like potassium levels, your phosphate levels, your sodium levels, because you have been so, like you've been neglecting your body for so long and your body has like gotten used to those levels. If you were to eat a burger, your body would go from here to here and it would not be able to cope. It would put your heart out of whack. It could kill you.
Right.
So refeeding syndrome, well, that is refeeding syndrome, but instead of just feeding me the full diet of what I would have been on eventually, they had to half my meal plan.
Okay.
So, which I remember thinking was fucking stupid because it was literally less food than I was eating at home.
Really?
I remember being like, I'm actually hungry, like give me food. But they couldn't. I remember when I was in the cardiac ward asking to eat. Like I was actually like hungry. Like I ate food, just not a lot pretty much. And because I was exercising so much at the time.
Okay.
Like I was eating just minimal.
Yeah.
So I remember being in the hospital and asking for a sandwich and they were like, nah, can't give you that. And I remember being like, this is the fucking stupidest thing ever. Like, this is why I'm here. Just feed me. And they're like, nah, can't do that.
Interesting.
It's the same thing when I was eventually on the mental health ward. They would give me half the meal plan and I was like, well, like, I can eat. Give me the food. And after a week, maybe 2 weeks, I think they eventually go to like 3/4 of your meal plan and would add a snack. And then they eventually, I think after maybe like a month, got to like the full meal plan. And then, because they take your bloods maybe twice a week. And they were giving me potassium drinks. They would take your sugars 4 times a day. So obviously they were like monitoring my blood work. And so eventually I would have got to a normal level and they can feed me a normal amount.
Yeah.
Is my understanding of it.
Okay. And so at that point, because also you mentioned it's a control thing, you mentioned that you hated the fact that, you know, someone was there monitoring you constantly, making you eat as well, even though you just described that there was some hunger and things there that sometimes you wanted to eat. But at that point, were you wanting to get better?
We talked about this off air before. I realized that if I did what they wanted me to do, I got out of there quicker. The quicker I got out of there, the quicker I could return to my normal habits. I got personally very good at manipulating people. Not so much in the hospital because like they're mental health nurses. Like they see through your bullshit. They're not stupid. Like they get it. This is their job. But like even doctors, like they would be like, "How are you feeling?" And I'd be like, "Great." Like I'm doing really well with my meal plan. And internally, I was like, "I just want to get the fuck out of here so I can go back and do it all again."
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you mentioned as well previously because you have weigh-ins.
Yeah.
Right?
I think at the start it's every day.
Yeah.
But I think it ended up being like every Tuesday you would weigh in and you would do a blind weigh-in so you couldn't look at your weight.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And what were you doing when it came to a weigh-in time?
You couldn't do anything. Like in my head, you can't. So everything you put in your mouth is watched. So like you can't scull water, for instance.
Yeah.
Which would make you gain weight.
Right.
Weigh-in time was literally like they woke you up at 6 a.m. You got on the scale.
Yeah. Okay.
You could go back to sleep. That was it. Weigh-in time it wasn't even stressful because I couldn't see the numbers.
Yeah.
So
okay.
like I knew I was gaining weight, but again, my long-term goal was to get out of there to do it again.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter in my head because I was like, I've done it once.
Yeah.
I can do it again.
Yeah. What, if you don't mind me asking, what weight were you when you were admitted? Do you know roughly?
I think I was 42 kilos.
And how long did you spend in hospital?
4 months?
Yeah.
5 months?
And what weight were you when you left? Do you know?
About 48, 49.
Yeah. So you'd put
I
on
was below 50,
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, but you'd put on a bit of weight
Yeah.
at least. And so by the time that you were leaving then, because you were in there for a few months, were you still of that same mentality after that amount of time? Like, I just want to get out of here so I can return to the same habits?
Kind of. I think I had gotten a little bit better, but the fact that it's so centered on food.
Yeah.
Like, there's no cognitive behavioral therapy that they give you or like any other, why do you think this way? Like, there's no therapy in there. It's just kind of like you'll do activities with the other kids and they're like painting or stuff, and then you'll eat and someone will watch you. There's no therapy in a sense. So like, I don't know how it's supposed to be helping your mind frame. Like I do remember like feeling probably not as motivated to do it all again.
Yeah.
But I still had that want.
Yeah. Okay. What happened once you left?
So once I left, my parents, not the deal was, but I think it's just what they always do. You have to do some sort of therapy once you leave. You can't just leave and like do nothing. So my parents chose to there's something called the Maudsley method, which is a family-based approach. Every week at the start, I had to go to the therapy area with my mum and dad, and I would get weighed, and we would have like a group discussion. And sometimes they would they always would just talk to me, and then they would talk to my parents, and then we would all have like a group discussion. And they would I'm not sure if they gave my parents meal plans rather than, it was calories. It was based on calories. It wasn't meal plans. They would give my parents calories of what I had to eat that week. And then it became once every 2 weeks, once every month. And then I think it was maybe once every month for 6 months, maybe less.
Yeah.
And then you went away. And I think that was based on a weight thing. So once you hit a weight, that's what kind of still frustrates me. It's all based on weight rather than do you feel better?
Yeah, right.
Like, how's your mental health? Like, although at the time I would have 100% manipulated it and lied. But now I'm kind of like, it's all weight factored.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, interesting. And so after that point and doing the therapy sessions, was that when you started to improve and get better?
No.
Okay. Step me through what happened
So
next.
that would have been start of grade 12, midway through grade 12. I got out of those therapy sessions, still had to be, someone had to watch me eat in grade 12. So I had to go to the office and eat, which was so embarrassing. But that's what had to be done. Again, during this time, I was manipulating what mum was putting in my lunchbox. I would just take it out and get rid of it. Anyway, it continued. It actually, I think that year I was still very unhealthy. But I remember my worst, like my lowest ever, was at the end of grade 12 during schoolies. I remember even like now I see pictures and I'm like, oh my God, like that's awful. And I think from that time till maybe end of first year uni, it would have been my worst period. So I relapsed like immediately and I went way downhill in terms of weight. And also because I started uni, I was like probably stressed, didn't know how to manage the stress like well. And so it just completely went totally downhill.
So you went again?
Yeah.
But this time it was worse?
Yeah.
Worse than almost heart failure?
I don't know about my pulses and things because I didn't see a doctor because I didn't go to hospital. But in terms of, it was my worst weight.
Right. How low did you get?
40.
Yeah. Okay. And what, okay, so obviously you didn't go to hospital this time around though.
Mm-mm.
So
this is also during a time where my mum had moved out of my family home.
Yeah.
And I was just living with my dad.
Yeah.
And it was so much easier to manipulate one parent versus two parents.
Interesting.
And because I was at uni, just go to uni.
Yeah.
Don't have to be at home for the whole day. Don't have to eat the whole day.
Okay.
And I think I was still doing, were we still doing athletics at this point?
Yeah.
I think we were because and that's another thing. I do actually respect my parents for letting me, this might not be for everyone, but I remember my mum going to a conference and they were like, it was the opposite of what most people told you about anorexia. They were always like, you need to stop exercising. And my mum went to a conference and they were like, you need to let your child or whoever is being affected by anorexia or the eating disorder do what they still love to do. Because if you take that away, what are they left with? And so mum let me do athletics. The deal was I would have to eat more. But because I loved it and that was my hobby, she was like, you have to let her do it. Like, and my sessions were cut short. And because Eric knew about it, like he didn't let me do anything stupid. Like, but I'm very thankful that my parents let me continue doing that because I would have had nothing.
Yeah. And you probably would have rebelled in your actions as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Made it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And so relapsed, didn't go back into hospital or anything like that. So what pulled you out of it that time?
I think my relationship at the time that I got into in first year uni.
Ah, it was love.
It's so weird talking about it now because it's fucking ex.
It's fine. It was like, it's an important part of the journey though, right? Yeah. Okay, so your ex coming into your life motivated you maybe to...
It just became, you get into a relationship, you go out to dinner, like you kind of, I think I was embarrassed to be like, oh, I can't eat that. Like he knew about my eating disorder too because like he went to the brother school of the high school I went to. So like he had probably gathered that I was unwell. Like I think a lot of people, I think everyone would have been like, she's not well.
Yeah.
And it was just good in the fact that he like made me feel more comfortable around food. Definitely not comfortable. Like he knew I had issues surrounding food and he never pressured me into like, he would never be like, no, you need to eat that. Yeah. Like he just let me do my own thing. And over time, I think I became more and more comfortable and got rid of stupid little things I did surrounding food. And I think it was a long journey. Like it probably would have taken me, like I still deal with so many issues surrounding food. Like I always will, I feel like. But it would have taken me probably maybe from university, maybe only 3 years ago for me to actually, maybe even more recently, I don't really know, but like to kind of get, not over it, but deal with it better
Yeah, okay.
and kind of accept the fact that, like, you need food. And because I train now, like, I do weights and everything,
Yeah.
I think my mindset has now turned into, like, I'd rather be strong than frail and weak.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned also that the mentality doesn't necessarily go away, right? You said that there are still things that
I still
you
struggle
continue
with
to
every
struggle
single
with.
meal.
Every single meal.
It's always a sense of kind of like, I was mentioning to my boyfriend currently last night that, like, I told him that, like, even when we go out to breakfast, there's still, like, I always used to order, like, if I had to go out to breakfast, which was a huge thing for me, I would just order, like, your bacon and eggs. And that's another thing with anorexia that I've gone through is I know exactly how many calories are in everything. So, like, every single thing, I can tell you the calories roughly, obviously. So, like, when I used to go out to eat, bacon and eggs were the lowest calorie in my mind because it theoretically is. Like, it's still to this day, if I was to go out, I wouldn't get, like, bacon and eggs. I'd have a look at the menu, but there's things like hotcakes or, like, pancakes, whatever you want to call it, or, like, I don't know, those really big, elaborate, like, big breakfasts. Like, if I wanted a big breakfast, I still would never get it.
Yeah.
Ever. There's no way I would get it. Or, like, a milkshake. There's no way I'm ordering a milkshake. There's just, it's literally taken me probably about until 2 years ago, and you can probably attain to this, is that I would never order a milky coffee.
Yeah.
It was always a long black. Fucking hated long blacks. I do like them now.
Yeah.
But, like, I used to hate them. But I was like, I want coffee. Can't have milk, not allowed milk.
Yeah, okay. And what do you see when you look in the mirror now? Do we still
It
have...
changes.
Okay. Do we still have the body dysmorphia?
Oh, God, yeah. That's not going anywhere, unfortunately. I don't think it's going anywhere. I hope it does, but I don't think it will. I also think because now I do strength training, weights, whatever you want to call it, and, like, I go to the gym, that can also, it helped me, but also, and you know what I'm getting at when I say this, is that social Instagram has changed from wanting women to be really thin to now wanting them to be really muscular. So now my mindset is like, I'm not muscular enough or I'm not lean enough. And I'm like, oh, this is going to go on for so long. Because, like, the ideal body shape for women is constantly going to change. So I'm constantly going to have to look at myself and be like, that's not what is in trend right now. So, like, I do look at myself often. I'm like, I'm not unhappy with what I see, but I could be better.
Yeah. So interesting. And I think it's something that all of us go through as well, but probably particularly people who have experienced eating disorders.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, my mum, for instance, had bulimia when she was very young, and she has always said that the mentality never goes away. It's a lifelong thing.
I've heard people say that they've recovered from anorexia, and I'm not calling bullshit. That's fine. That's fine. I don't think I'll ever recover from it, unfortunately. I think I'll always have, and I hope, like, over the years it, like, gets less and less, but I know I'm always going to have, like, feelings of it and, like, little things with food.
Yeah, okay. I would like to, and you might have to help me out here, I would like to myth bust some things around anorexia. You just kind of triggered me to think that.
I can already talk about my...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. But, like, for instance, as you just said, like, recovery from anorexia, I would be inclined to say that you're probably more right, that it is not, maybe
I call
not
bullshit.
Yeah.
But, like, I just feel like you've gone a huge part of your life and, like, a dark part of your life learning all these little, not learning, but, like, believing in, like, certain food things and, like, calories, for instance. Like, you're not going to forget that. Like, you're always going to remember that. And so I just feel like even when I'm older, I probably won't give a shit about the amount of calories in the burger I'm eating, but I'm still going to know them. That's what I'm getting at, is I don't call that fully recovering, because I still think when I'm older, I'll have good days and bad days, hopefully more good days, but I'm still going to have a bad day and feel like shit after eating something that I deem as being a shitty food.
Yeah.
That's not full recovery.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah. And I think that's not just anyone who's had an eating disorder as well. I think, as you were mentioning before, like gym girlies, God, we're tough on ourselves. And it's difficult. Like, you know, and that's, for instance, I've never personally experienced an eating disorder, but fuck, if I feel that level of guilt or shame in relation to some of the foods that I'm consuming, I can only imagine the experience is tenfold for someone who has been through an eating disorder as well. Potentially another, it's not so much a myth, but potentially a misconception around what eating disorders are or look like. You were mentioning that you think it is potentially loosely used these days. I know I've been with you once before and I've looked at a woman thinking she's anorexic.
Yeah.
And you told me not necessarily. And I was like, that's interesting.
It's just, I don't think you can really, like, judge someone from what they look like. I don't know. It's hard to put into words because, like, I think some people throw the word eating disorder around a lot without knowing what it is. I also feel like eating disorders came into a trend at a certain point and people were throwing eating disorders around because they thought, I've got an eating disorder. Like, I'm going to be thin or I'm going to, you know, whatever their eating disorder is. And, like, that at the time I was like, this is fucked. Like, eating disorders, like, I've seen videos about people being like, eating disorders aren't glamorized. Like, it's not glamorous. Like, it's not what people think it is. I think it has been in the past thrown around a lot. I'm not sure, like, I think there's more information about it these days, so I feel like it's not as thrown around the word or phrase as much.
Well, I mean, I would equate that to also how people are loosely using depression these days.
Yeah. Again,
are you
I'm
sad?
not saying you have to be, yeah.
Are you actually sad?
Are you actually sad? I'm not putting shit on people who say they have an eating disorder like that. I've got nothing to do, like, I believe you, that's fine. But I feel like there is a criteria, there's a definition. Yeah. I'm not saying you don't have issues with food at all. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. But it's like the same with depression. Like, I don't have depression and I'm aware of that though. Yeah. I get anxious. I don't think I can be clinically diagnosed with anxiety.
Yeah. I think also I couldn't comment on this because I haven't had an eating disorder, but I don't know if you were hearing that from people and knowing that you were either going through an eating disorder or had been through one yourself. I don't know whether you can comment on that, but like I would assume the mentality would be like, shut up. I don't know.
Kind of. But also like I can't just be like, shut the fuck up. Like you wouldn't know because I don't know.
It's also not a competition. My eating disorder is worse than your eating disorder.
Yeah, literally. But I'm like, I can't say that because I'm like, I don't know what they've gone through. Yeah. Like maybe they are going through it. Like I'm not the person to judge that. It's also none of my business.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But
yeah, and another kind of myth potentially is something we touched on earlier is about like if someone close to me has an eating disorder that I can't necessarily talk to them. That was, and I didn't talk to you. And
no one did.
No one, exactly. Yeah. And I didn't talk to my other friend. And I think that's something, and it's difficult because an adolescent brain works very differently.
I think it's different when you're a teenager versus if I had a friend now who, different because I've been through it. Yeah. But like, let's say I had a friend with depression. Yeah. I would talk to them about it. Yeah. But as a teenager, you're kind of like, I don't know what the fuck to do. Like,
and I think one thing in that I was concerned about that I'm sure other people might be concerned about as well is the fact that you think talking about it with that person might trigger them or make it worse. True or false?
Depends what you say, which is another hard thing because like you wouldn't have known what to say. Like, and I wouldn't have exactly known what would have triggered me at the time. It's I think Hannah, one of my best friends, went to my parents. But also at that stage, it was very obvious to anyone who looked at me. Like, it was obvious. Yeah. But in terms of talking to someone like feel like as an adult, it's so much easier. Whereas a teenager, I don't really know. I don't really know what to comment on that because I don't know if it was my friend going through it at that time, if I would have said anything. Like, I've got no idea.
Yeah. So it's a tricky one.
And like, it's literally, you don't know if you're going to trigger them until you say something, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what their trigger things are. I still get triggered by some things that people say, and I'm like, why the fuck was I just triggered by that? Like, I don't know what I'm triggered by sometimes. And like, I deal with, like, I'm not externally triggered. Like, I'm all internally. I'm a bit like, that's a bit off-putting. But like, I never externalize what I'm triggered by anymore.
So now you're a gym girly.
Yeah.
As well.
Trying to be.
You are. You're doing your bulks, doing your shreds. You're fully into it.
Bulks at this point.
Feel that. I'm curious, do you know if there's been any long-term damage that you've caused for yourself being through that?
My heart isn't 100%. Don't know the full information of that, but I've somewhat screwed up my heart from being in heart failure. Do you mean like health?
Health also, whether or not you can attribute that eating disorder to any difficulty that you've experienced during shreds. And I know that's difficult to say, right?
Yeah, okay.
But I'm assuming there may be some factors there too.
So I've had 2 coaches in the past help me go through like bulk shreds maintenance phase, and like I've not for competitions or anything, just for my own, like, you know, just to see if I can do it or whatever.
Yeah.
In a healthy way, obviously. And both of them have found that, I don't know, normally you would go on like a cut for, you would know better, 12 weeks, I don't know, 10 weeks, whatever. And like gradually, you like have a graph of your weight, you would gradually, you know, go down, like obviously up, down, up, down, up, down. I would stay the same for the first 6-7 weeks, like, you know, probably down like 800 grams in that time. And my coaches would be like, probably, they don't actually say that to me, but internally I'm sure they're like, what the fuck is going on with this girl? Like, why is she following my protocols?
Yeah.
Like, and like I probably would be looking tiny bit leaner and stuff. And I remember the last 2 cuts ago, actually. So it would have been 2022 February, I think. I literally remember, and this is probably not how it happened, but like I literally remember waking up one day after probably 8 weeks of this cut, and I was down to, I'm not going to say calories, but like I was down to a calorie number that I should have been losing weight on.
Yeah.
And because I was actually following protocols and I was doing gym and I was doing my steps. And I literally remember waking up and being like, it's finally happened. I've lost the weight. It's not like I did lose the weight. And from that point to probably another 6 weeks, the weight fell off. Like nothing for the first 8 weeks. And then it literally 5 kilos.
Yeah.
Like within that 6 weeks. Like obviously that's water weight and like it's not just 5 kilos of fat or whatever. And it's probably like you probably lose muscle as well because you are eating at a probably lower calories than you should be at that point. But I'm not sure if I fucked my metabolism up. Like, and I still feel like it's not the best metabolism. Like, it's not, I can't lose weight very quickly if I wanted to, which I don't want to really right now. But I do gain weight pretty quickly if I want to.
Yeah, awesome.
So I'm not sure if that's like attributed to eating disorder. I've got no idea. Like I know I've read things and like increase your metabolism by doing this, and I'm like, oh, I've been trying to do that for like, how old am I? 10 years now, and it's not happened.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got one last question for you. This is a question that I ask all my guests. Now, your response can be in relation to eating disorders or just fitness in general. We've talked about a few, I guess, social trends and things like that these days. So my question is that Physikal is all about breaking the mold, especially in the fitness industry. What would be one mold that you would like to see broken, one stereotype torn down?
That's a a really good question. I should have known this was coming. Like, I listened to your podcast.
It's better to get your
my
response.
God.
Your response.
What I really hate, I don't know if it's a stereotype, but like I hate these trends going round of like, you know how we were like having a thin trend and now we have a muscular trend. And like I feel like we just need to like be happy in your own body. It doesn't matter if you're muscular. And like I need to take my own advice 100%. But like it doesn't help that social media kind of puts in your face like my whole feed, and I know it is dependent on what you like on Instagram, but like I don't feel like I like a lot of shit full stop on Instagram. But like my whole feed is muscular girls and like lean girls and running girls and like doing triathlons and marathons. And I'm kind of like, can I not just go to the gym twice a week and still be fit and healthy? Like, do I have to run a marathon to be fit and healthy?
Yeah.
Is that that's not really a stereotype though.
It's a mold.
Like it's a mold. Like I'm
It's a
just kind of
trend.
like, you be a Pilates girly means you're still healthy and fit. Like you don't have to be a runner or be super lean. You don't have to look a certain way to be considered healthy and fit.
Yeah. I don't have to have a huge dumpy.
Correct, right?
And I
Or
ain't
like
gonna.
fucking capped shoulders, although that would be delightful. You don't need it.
Yeah.
I need to take my own advice. Like I'm aware of that. But
We all do. We
Yeah.
all do. I like that one though.
Yeah?
Because, well, trends are always going to change.
they're always going to change. So like you'll get capped shoulders, you'll get a huge dumpy, you'll get that snatched waist. And then next year, kidding, we actually want a small ass. And
It's all about the abs
It's all
next
about
year.
the
We're
abs
coming
next
we're coming
year.
back to low rise
Right?
things. Low rise can fuck off.
yeah. And then the next year we'll have huge calves. And girl, you'll be fucking it.
That'll be my era. Where's the big calf girl era? When's that coming?
Right? And like each year's gonna, or each 2 years, whatever it is, each year's gonna change. Eventually you're gonna go back to being rake thin girls.
Yeah.
And then you go back to being strength girlies again. And like you're never gonna be good enough. So just do what you wanna do. Look what you wanna look like. Do what exercise you wanna do. Like,
I love that.
sweet.
Good gal. Good gal. All right. We're going to wrap there, ladies.
That wasn't so bad.
I know. I know you did good. See, it's a conversation that's recorded. All right, Physi.Kal girls, thank you so much for tuning in to this conversation. I hope that you got some value out of that. I am sure that that story is going to relate to a fair few of you as well who have experienced eating disorders. And I'm also going to be continuing on with the Physi.Kal monthly giveaway. So in order for you to get either one of these jumpsuits or potentially one of the new sets, I'll decide depending on the winner and what they would like. You need to follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, subscribe to us on YouTube, and also leave a review. That is the best way that you can support this podcast and help me to continue speaking to awesome fitness girly guests like I have been. So thank you so much for tuning in, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thanks, pals.
Thank you.